Hi YouTube, Art here again with another Warzone audio video, and in today's video I am very excited to share with you new updates I found to Warzone audio in Season 4. These tweaks that I've come up with this season really speak to everything I've done way back to like the 7.1 audio setup, and it's going to be a little bit more complicated than the last two videos, but I really think this is something new and different, and it really changes the way the game sounds. Just a real quick blanket overview of what the tune is doing. We are going to install a virtual cable on the PC that will be set up for 7.1 surround sound, so Call of Duty will think you're playing in 7.1 surround sound. Another application is going to mix that down to stereo to your two left and right speakers on your headset, and this mix will be more detailed, more locationally accurate, and things we're going to do in the tune will make your footsteps near quiet. So all of the loudness EQ stuff we're going to do is only going to amplify other people's footsteps. So that's the goal of this tune. I know it sounds crazy, bear with me, it is very, very good. A couple things before we get into it. You really have to follow each step, and I'm going to be very, very clear in this video. It's kind of going to be boring and long, but I really want to be as clear as possible. So please, if you're not sure, pause, rewind, rewatch it. I'm going to try to be good about slowing down in parts that are a little complicated. Also, to make things easier, there is a Google Drive link below inside of a bit.ly link. That will have the equalizer APO configurations as well as a zip file that you can download that will include all of the applications that we need today. If you're unsure about downloading a bunch of applications from a Google Drive, I've went ahead and linked each application down below, and I'm going to go through each of them right now in my browser. For the sake of ease and lack of confusion in this video, go ahead and uninstall any of the old tunes that I have done with y'all in the past. Go ahead and just revert to default settings before we begin. The first app we will need, I'm sure you're familiar with if you've watched the channel for a while, is Hifi cable. What this is a virtual audio device that can be installed on your PC that we can configure for 7.1 surround sound. You'll find the download link below. The second app you'll need to download is how we're going to get that Hifi cable to your audio device, and that's Voicemeeter. It also will give you another virtual input that won't have the effects on it that you can use for other sounds on your computer. The download link is at the bottom of the page, and you want to download the .exe. The next app I've used in every single one of my tunes. It's Equalizer APO. It actually consists of a bunch of different apps like Configuration Editor and Configurator. It's available on this SourceForge page. All of these links are in the description below. You can click the green download button on this page. The next application is HeSuVi. HeSuVi's job in this whole thing is to take all that 7.1 surround sound information that's coming out of the game to that new cable that's set up for 7.1 surround sound and assign it to different places in a stereo headset, because most, if not all, headsets you're listening on are stereo, and so they will not compute all that 7.1 information correctly without the right instructions, and HeSuVi is the application that we will use to provide those instructions. Again, it's on SourceForge, linked in the description. You can click the green download link. The final thing you'll need to download is Reaplugs from Reaper, and a lot of people in previous videos were having trouble with this. These are the VST plugins that I use to further tweak the audio. They were going to this website and they were clicking the green download Reaper plugin at the top. That's their paid plugin. You don't want that. You'll want to navigate to the link in the description and download most likely the 64-bit Reaplugs VSTs here in the middle of the page. Like I said, if you don't want to mess with any of this and you want all the apps in one place, the bit.ly link to the configurations has a zip file in it. You can download all the apps right there. Linked in the description is a bit.ly link. That link will direct you here to my Google Drive. You'll find the Art is War Warzone 2 Season 4 configs inside this folder. They're 2 text files. We'll go over how to use those later. But you will also find, like I just mentioned, all of the apps that we just talked about zipped together in a download that you can download from here. Regardless of how you get the apps, make sure you download this folder with both configs in it, because we will need that later. Let's go ahead and jump into the instructions of setting all of this up. I have actually uninstalled most, if not all of this from my PC, so I'm going to be doing it with y'all live in this video. So I'm going to act as if I downloaded that entire Art is War _Season 4 _audio folder, and I have the configs here, and I have the easy download app pack here. So I'm going to go ahead and extract that application folder, and we can get right into it. If you open it, you'll see each app is labeled in the order which you should do it. So first, we're going to start with the Hifi cable. We will run this installer, and it should run as admin by default, which is that little shield icon there. Go ahead and click install. let it do its thing. It'll say you need to reboot to complete the installation. We're going to do a big restart later, so go ahead and just click OK. You can go back and you can go to the Voicemeeter folder, the second folder. This will install Voicemeeter on the PC. Again, run the installer, click install. It says you will need to reboot. A browser window might open. You can ignore that browser window, just hit OK. And we'll go back yet again. Here we'll install Equalizer APO. These are where the steps start to get important. So run this installer. Please, on all these apps, don't change the directory where they're going. They just need to go to the program files on your computer. You don't want to put them on the desktop in a special folder. All these apps need to be installed to C/program files/ the respective app name. So just leave that alone. Go ahead and hit next. Install. Once the install is done, you will be prompted with this window. This is actually one of the applications inside Equalizer APO. This is Configurator. We're only going to want to check one device here, and this is Hifi cable input. This will put important flags on that Hifi cable that we just installed that lets us turn on loudness EQ as well as add tweaks later. So, important part here, check Hifi cable input and click OK. If you ever want to change this dialog is telling you can run configurator.exe later, which we will have to do. Just go ahead and click OK for now. And when you're presented with this box, go ahead and check I want to manually reboot later. We'll go back to the root folder. We will install HeSuVi. Again, with this installer, you just want to kind of click yes through it, allow it to do its thing through the default directories. It'll run this kind of code window, and then the application will pop up and another browser window will pop up. You can close that browser window. You can leave this alone for now. Just remember, we will have to open HeSuVi later. So we'll change all of this later. Go ahead and close this, and we'll finish installing all of the apps. Go ahead and go back to the root directory, and the last thing we're going to install is Reaplugs. These are the VST plugins. So run that installer. Just leave everything default, leave the directory default, go ahead and hit install, and then once it's done, you can hit close. So, now that you're done there, that is the big overarching install process. You can go ahead and hit back, and we'll need this text document next, which will also be in that configurations folder if you chose not to download the Easy App download pack. Opening this looks kind of intimidating. There's instructions at the top. This middle section here is the command that we're going to need, and then the source is down below, that GitHub link if you want to check any of my work. So the first thing we're going to need to do here is, what we're using this for is to turn loudness EQ on that Hifi cable. So if you go to Windows Search, and you search for PowerShell, you should find this application here. Right-click it, run as administrator, right? You'll have this new window pop up. Go ahead and select all of this command here and paste it in. We'll go ahead and hit enter. It'll ask if it's okay to change a policy. What this is doing is pulling from the Windows servers the loudness EQ policy. So in English, you'll press A and you'll hit enter, and it'll ask for the playback device name. Now, we're going to want to apply this to the Hifi cable, which we just installed. So if we go to Sounds and we go to Playback, you'll see it's called Hifi cable input there. So I'll go back to this window. I will type Hi-Fi cable input, and I will hit enter. It will go through its process. You'll see the sounds window change, and then you're done. You can close this, and we will finish now with the sounds window open. Again, if you didn't find that, you right-click your speakers icon, and you go to Sounds, and then you go to the Playback tab. Or, if you're on Windows 11, for some reason they hid this, you can go down to the Windows search bar and type mmsys.cpl, and it'll open this sound control panel window here. So, now that we've done that, we've installed loudness EQ on the device, select the Hifi cable here, and click Configure. If you've watched my old tuning videos, you'll remember these steps. Go ahead and hit 7.1 surround sound, click Next, click Next, click Next, and click Finish. With the Hifi cable still selected, now configured for 7.1 surround sound, click Properties. And you'll want to go to Enhancements. You'll want to check Loudness EQ. With it selected, you'll want to go to Settings, make it full short, hit OK, hit Apply, and hit OK. Now, there's a really technical thing for the next thing we're to do. Just follow my instructions. You'll want to go to the Recording tab. select the Hifi cable output, click Properties, go to Advanced, and change this from 2-channel 24-bit 44.1 to the next option down, which is 2-channel 24-bit 48,000 Hertz. Go ahead and hit Apply, hit OK, and we are done in this window with all of these settings. Go ahead and hit OK, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so because we did that step of enabling loudness EQ on the Hifi cable, it's going to actually break the equalizer APO install that we did. So before we restart, we need to close this window. We can go down and you can either search for configurator. Some of you may have indexing off on your PC, which will prevent you from searching. So if you want to look for it manually, you can go to apps, or I'm sorry, you can go to start menu, you can go down and find equalizer APO, and you can find configurator and run that application. And as you can see, it's no longer installed on the Hifi cable. So we need to go ahead and check the Hifi cable again, hit OK. To apply these changes, Windows should be rebooted. Reboot now. So we've done everything we need to do with all the installs and all the tweaks. So we can go ahead and click yes, and I will see you guys back here once the PC restarts. So freshly restarted, we're back on the PC. The next application that we're going to want to open and configure is HeSuVi. And HeSuVi, once more, is the application that controls how the 7.1 surround sound information from the game gets mapped down to your stereo headset. So again, we'll browse for the application here in the start menu. It should have its own folder called HeSuVi. Click the icon. Before we get started, if you go down to your taskbar and you right click, you'll want to pin it to the taskbar because you'll be experimenting with some of these settings, I bet, in the future. So it's just good to keep it handy. So we'll go ahead and match the settings I'm about to show you here. So under Common HRIRs on the left, you'll want to select Atmos minus. This is Dolby Atmos without having to pay for it and without reverb. Reverb is like extra room echo, which in my experience just crowds the mix. So we're going to choose Atmos minus, which doesn't have the reverb on it. Once you've selected that, the next thing we're going to need to change are a couple things in the matrix upmix section. You do not want anything checked in this top window. So no checkbox next to stereo or 5.1, and you'll want content format set to automatic. The speaker position we will not adjust because this, in my testing, led to inaccuracy in locational audio cues, so we will leave all of this at 0. What we will begin to change is the volume adjustment, and this is where things really start to get interesting. Back in my old 7.1 audio tune, we used to be able to turn down the front channel here, and this front channel then contained your POV's operator footsteps and a large part of your gunshots. So in my testing, I was able to run this at 0 and load up into the firing range and absolutely not hear my own footsteps at all. Now, do I think we should run it at 0 with this configuration? No, because I do think you're probably going to lose audio cues somewhere. And if you're streaming or if you're a content creator and the sound of your game matters, it just sounds too weird. I mean, feel free to try 0 out here because it's working like it used to. It really does turn down a lot of your gunshots and a lot of your own footsteps, which will help. I'll talk about more later once we set everything up. What I have found to work really well is a value around 20, 25. I worked with Mutex testing this audio and he chose to run 14. So that's the value I'm going to plug in today. You can experiment. The default value is 100, so you can set it there and bring it down and see what feels best to you. But again, be careful with running it at 0 because you may lose audio cues. Now, for the rest of the volume adjustments, we're going to leave side and rear alone because it makes things way too loud. The other thing that does work, and we're going to take to 0, is LFE. So LFE stands for low frequency effects, and that's all of the Michael Bay style like rumbles that you hear in a movie theater. And as a competitive gamer, I don't want any of those sounds in my game. Those just serve to crowd my ears and get in the way of what I'm trying to hear. So LFE, we're going to set to 0. Once you've done all of this, you don't need to change it. You can close it and make sure, like I said, you pinned it to the taskbar. So if you do want to experiment with this front channel, you can. But like I said, we are going to leave that at 14. And make sure after you change that number, you hit enter so it applies. We're going to close this application. We'll move on to the next step. The next step of the video, what we're going to want to do is we're going to use Configuration Editor from Equalizer APO to install HeSuVi on the Hifi cable so it can do its instructions for surround sound, and also the extra tweaks that help further make footsteps louder and massage the sound even more. So again, we can go to the tray here and we can search for configuration editor, and it'll pop up just like that if you have indexing on. If some of you have optimized Windows with that off, you can just go to the start menu here and you can scroll down till you find equalizer APO. Inside that folder is configuration editor. You may get this error sometimes if you choose a different default device. You don't have to click yes here. It just means that whatever is selected as your default device down here does not have equalizer APO installed in it. To show you, I'm going to click no, I'm going to close it. And because in configurator earlier, we checked that Hifi cable box, if I change my default device to Hifi cable input there, and then I open configuration editor again, now it won't give me the error. So you can ignore that error for the most part. Now, with configuration editor opened, in the drop-down menu, you can show here that it's the only device with it on it, Hifi cable. You're going to want to click this blue icon up here, this folder, and this is open. In here is where all of the configuration files must go. So once you download them, you have to put them in here. The easiest way to do this is just copy them in while you have this open dialog open. So again, you've downloaded the config files. You can select both of them, Control C or right click and copy. And then in this window, you want to hit paste. Now, when this window pops up, it's asking if you want to overwrite a file. This is because I have included a config.txt along with the other config files. So you want to make sure you click replace this file. So it just overwrites it here. Once those are pasted in, you can select the artiswar_warzone2_season4 file and hit open. Once it's open, you want to direct your attention to the 3 VST plugins here at the bottom. Each of these you'll have to apply because those settings don't carry over when I share the file. So go ahead and click Open Panel. You'll want to check Apply Automatically, Apply, and OK. And you'll want to do that for every single one of these plugins here. Hit Apply, hit OK, Open Panel, Apply Automatically, Apply, and OK. Once you're done with that, we're going to close and reopen Configuration Editor. So I already have mine pinned to the taskbar here. I'm going to open it again, close this Artist War file. You don't need it open. And you can see here that the configuration editor has 2 lines. The first one here is the HeSuVi.txt file, and those are actually the instructions being applied to this device from HeSuVi, right? So the next file is that file that we just applied all of those apply automatically checkboxes to. Those are the further tweaks. So each of these powered on or white are applied to the device here. If for any reason you ever want to turn them off in the future, you can switch them to black here, and that means that they're off. But I will show you a different workaround for not hearing things through this tuned audio. So once you have both files pasted in there, yours looks like this. It should say Hifi cable up here, and if you've configured the device for 7.1, it should say so up here. You can close this, and you won't have to open this again. One of the final things that we'll have to set up is Voicemeeter. Again, to find it, you can just search Voicemeeter in the bar down here at the bottom, or click your start menu, scroll all the way down to V, and find Voicemeeter, or VB Audio rather, and then you will find the Voicemeeter application. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are probably saying, why are we using Voicemeeter? This seems so extra, I don't need it. This is the simplest way for me to make a video for everyone. There's a lot of other ways to do this. Some of y'all have hardware that supports 7.1 surround sound natively, but this is the one way I can set up this audio system for everybody. So bear with me. I'm sure everybody's going to comment, but what about this? But what about that? This is the most simple, unifying, and free way to do it. Your Voicemeeter is going to look something like this when you start up. So what we're going to want to start here is with the hardware input 1. So we're going to select the drop down here, and you want to select WDM Hifi cable output here. Go ahead and select that, mount it there. Then on the right side under hardware out, where it says A1, you're going to want to select your device here. Now that could be your Astro's device. That could be your Arctis headset. That could be your speaker's out port. Whatever is usually the device down here is going to be what your default device is. Or your hardware out devices, excuse me. So for me, I'm using optical into my Go XLR on my streaming PC. So I'm going to select my Realtek digital output. That's the general configuration here. So next, we're going to go to the top of the window here and click Menu. And we're going to make sure that all devices is checked here. Auto restart, audio engine, all devices. That needs to be checked in case Voicemeeter runs into any issues, it will automatically restart. The other things that we're going to want to check are system tray here and run at Windows startup. That way, when I close the application, it's going to run down here in the tray, and it will also run when Windows launches. The final thing that we're going to want to change here is we're going to want to go to menu, all the way down to system settings and options. And then in this very complicated window, we're going to look for this buffering WDM. And we're going to want to set this, ignore this warning, and we're going to want to set this to 192 to start. Now, if after you have all this set up and you have some digital static crunching, this is probably what needs to get increased, and you can increase it incrementally. Like from 192, try 256, and if that still crackles, try 320. Once that's done, and this is set to 192, you can close this window. That is all you should need to set up in here. I'm going to show you something really quick in here. So what we're essentially doing is we are mounting the virtual cable that we have all these effects on and we've set up for 7.1 surround sound. We're mounting it here, and Voicemeeter is outputting that audio to your hardware device, whatever that be. For me, again, that is my optical port going to my Go XLR. The other thing that it installs is the virtual cable input here. So if you're a single PC streamer and you use Discord on the device or you listen to your browser, you're going to want to set your output on this device to that. So in here, voice and video, I want my output device to be the Voicemeeter input. That way, none of the effects that we installed are put on your voices that you're trying to listen to while you play the game. So Voicemeeter input is actually going to be like your clean input on the computer, or your output rather. So for here, for my default device, I'm going to set it to Voicemeeter input. So if we pull up my good friend Iceman Isaac's stream here, you can see here that it is playing over this virtual input, but it is still going out over my digital output. So when we get into COD, we will configure it to be on the Hifi cable here, so that COD is only on that really weirdly affected audio. Everything else is on the Voicemeeter output. So again, if you want none of your effects on here, you can just set this to Voicemeeter input here down at the bottom. The other thing that I want to mention is if at any point you want to revert this, all you have to really do is stop this from running at startup and shut down Voicemeeter. Then you can switch back to your normal hardware output and revert all these settings. That's part of the glory of using Voicemeeter here. When I say if you want to revert and you want to go back to your hardware output, what I mean is down here, instead of having either of the virtual outputs, you can go back to Realtek digital output in my case, and then just shut down Voicemeeter, and you will be back to stock audio without any of the tweaks. I know Voicemeeter is kind of complicated, so I hope that was really clear. Again, I've linked down below a Calendly link if you want to book an appointment with me. Also linked below is our Discord, where the community kind of helps each other work these things out. Mid-edit art here, just wanted to clarify something. With all of this restarting and configuring, you just want to make sure that you have loudness EQ enabled on that new Hifi cable after we changed all those things. So you need to go down to the Windows search bar, type mmsys.cpl, especially if you're on Windows 11. That's the only way to open the sound control panel. If you're on Windows 10, you can right-click your speakers and click Sounds, and then go to the Playback tab. And you want to go down to the Hifi cable, click Properties, go to the Enhancements tab, and just ensure that loudness EQ is on and set to short. Before we actually move on to changing things inside the Call of Duty application, we need to make sure your config file is set up appropriately. If you don't know where that is, it's inside of Documents, Call of Duty, Players, and you're going to want to find the file called options.3.cod22.cst. If you haven't already, let that be opened by Notepad, and you're going to want to change the audio wanted channels number to 0, which is Windows default in the app. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, Art, what about the audio mix number? The audio mix number is defined by the application, so when you choose home theater, in my case, it sets this option in here to 4. If you choose PC, it's 0. If you choose headphones, it's 1. So don't worry too much about changing that. Go ahead and just set audio wanted channels number in the quotes there to 0. Go ahead and hit Command or Control S, excuse me, I'm a Mac user, and close that window. Now that that is all set up, we'll go ahead and launch Call of Duty and change a couple things in there. Now, inside the Call of Duty application, we're going to want to go to the Audio tab in Settings. This is where we're going to do all of our work. First, we're going to talk about audio mix. Now, because we are separating everything out into this kind of 3D 7.1 surround sound and turning down your footsteps, I found headphones, I found PC, I found headphones bass boost, all of those to be just way too loud. With this audio tuning, chests get way louder along with footsteps, and some other weird sounds can get loud here and there. It's well worth the clarity that you get. Just wait till you turn it on. But PC and headphones just felt like too much to me. So go ahead and choose home theater here. The next important thing to note is master volume. Something really interesting seems to happen inside of Call of Duty when the master volume is at 100. Everything seems to be driven to the very top and gets clipped way easier. I find myself turning it down every day. So for me, it's a volume between 50 and like 75. That's because, again, I'm running this audio out to my Go XLR, so I have a separate slider there. So I'd really recommend turning down the in-game master volume from 100 to like 50 or 75, like I said, but really, really recommend running master volume lower in-game. I turn off gameplay music. I turn dialogue volume down a lot because with this tune, it seems like enemy dropping in, all of those announcements are super, super loud. So running this anywhere from 30 to 50 really seems to be the sweet spot. Effects volume, we're going to want to leave at 100 here because that is going to be all the sound effects. We don't want to turn that down anymore because that has important stuff in it. Voice chat volume, you can turn down to whatever volume sounds good for you. That's just comms. Cinematic volume I have set to 0. I don't need any of that extra music, and I leave war tracks on because they are fun. The next part that you're going to want to change is your speakers, headphones, game sound. Now, this is important. We're going to want your output for the game sound to be on the Hifi cable input because that is the device that all the effects are on. That is also the device that is configured for 7.1 surround sound. So go ahead and select Hifi cable input for your speaker/headphone game sound device. The other important part is speaker output needs to be set to Windows default. This will make sure that it's not outputting stereo sound because, again, we configured this Hifi cable device to be surround sound, and we are cheesing that surround sound to get more accurate and more competitive sound. The next thing you can do, this is totally optional. Under voice chat, you can set this to that Voicemeeter input. Again, that is the virtual cable that comes with Voicemeeter that will not have any of the effects on it. So you'll be able to hear comms in-game loud and clear. And again, that's what you should set Discord to, like we talked about earlier. Okay, if you've done all that, we are done. The best way to test this is to go into the shooting range. Before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and tab out, and I'm going to go ahead and open HeSuVi here. And I'm going to set the front channel to 0. Now, I don't think you should set it there completely at all times. I'm going to set it to 0 for a second here just to do this test. So with it at 0, we're going to go ahead and just go to the shooting range somewhere. If I run around, you will not hear any footsteps from me, no matter how loud I make the game. None of my footsteps. And my guns are going to sound way different. This is at 0. So if your game sounds like this, you have followed the steps correctly. If it does not sound like this, one more time, down below, there's a Calendly link. You can book 30 minutes with me. I will set all of this up for you. I've never failed setting this up for anybody. I have a great success rate. Hundreds of people in the Discord have gotten my services and it worked great. But I like to provide all this for free if you're able to follow the steps. Again, if you followed it right and you set the front channel to 0, no footsteps in here, and your gun should sound weird as hell. What this means in-game is that when you hear footsteps and they're affected by loudness EQ because we have it on, those footsteps are going to be so much louder than they used to be, and you won't hear yours at all. Do I think you should run it at 0 all the time? No. So I'm going to set it back to what Mutex suggested, and we're going to do 14 here. And now you can hear my footsteps, and my gun will sound a little bit more normal. If you feel like there's a delay, the reason you feel there's a delay is because you're actually hearing less of the gun shoot, and you're hearing the bullets hit the target. So the delay sounds greater with an SMG because the bullet velocity is so bad. The delay is less bad with an AR because there's better bullet velocity. So again, test it in the firing range. If you need any help, Calendly links down below. I realize this is kind of complicated, but I really did make the video kind of straightforward and boring so that it was easy to follow. If you need help, all of those resources are linked below. If the video is helpful, go ahead and like it. Let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe and click the bell so you know when I upload another one. And the next couple videos in this channel are going to be a little bit different. I'm going to start reviewing some audio gear, specifically headsets and IEMs, and I'm going to try to dumb them down a little bit for people that might not have as much experience with audiophile gear. I have a whole collection of IEMs that I've been testing over the last couple months, and I'm actually going to give away a lot of those sets on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/art_is_war. I'll be live after this video goes live, testing the audio further and taking some of your questions. Please be kind to me. But until the next video, y'all, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.